Well, top of the evening to you, Manchester and surrounding communities. It is now 7 o'clock on Wednesday. It is time for the Progress Report. You may notice I'm wearing a funny hat, and that's because today we're going to talk about all kinds of things Irish. It's, of course, just a few days after St. Patrick's Day. We're in the middle of Irish Heritage Month, as proclaimed by Mayor Joyce Craig earlier in the month at the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. And today we're going to have a show talking about Irish heritage in Manchester and the St. Patrick's Parade, which is coming up on the 31st. And we hope every single person watching and everyone they know will come down to Elm Street and watch the best parade every year put on by the City of Manchester. And it doesn't cost the city a penny because of our fantastic St. Patrick's Parade Committee, who does all the fundraising and organizing and takes care of that for the city. Excuse me. We will also be talking to this year's Grand Marshals, but before we get to that, I want to apologize for Bob Backus. Actually, it's not an apology. Bob, as you know, is a very important state representative up in Concord, and today they are running late working on bill passage, so he will probably not be here today, so unfortunately you're stuck with me. But I have my good friend and fellow Hibernian brother and parade expert, Bill Beiser, with me to help me do the show, and we've got some great guests, so it will be a fun-filled evening for all involved. I hope we have a lot of Irish Americans watching, and I hope you will be interested enough to give us a call. Our call-in number is 640-3091, and we would love to hear from you what you think about what we're talking about, and maybe offer a little bit of your own salt and pepper to the conversation. Excuse me, but before we begin, I'm going to try to continue with a feature that we began a while back. I'm sorry, I've been away from the show for a while. I caught a cold back in February, and as you can hear me coughing, I'm still just barely getting over it. So that feature went on a hiatus, but it's the feature where I attempt to lib-splain something that's going on in the news today. And I want to talk a little bit about bigotry. Had a little bit of a lead into that, I think, in the previous show, but I'm going to go back. You may have heard, if you follow political news, there was a big brouhaha in Congress when Ilhan Omar, one of the first Islamic female representatives to Congress, made some comments about the influence of AIPAC upon U.S. foreign policy. And that created a real brouhaha because her comments were taken as bigoted, as racist. And I'm not disputing that they were either close to the line or over the line. There was something there, and a lot of people took offense at it. But I think, and then, in trying to explain, I don't know that she helped herself. But I think the effort probably got blurred by the outrage. The effort being to have a policy discussion. But the outrage kind of bubbling up and taking over the policy discussion. And we're living in a time where bigotry seems to be a little bit more emboldened than I'm accustomed to anyway. But there is a particular type of bigotry that a lot of people don't even notice, and it's pretty almost commonplace to accept it with nothing but a laugh. I'm going to ask Brian if you can put that first picture up. This is a Thomas Nast cartoon from the turn of the 20th century, and that is his depiction of an Irishman. I mean, that's a pretty racially insensitive depiction, and that was commonplace. That was published in the finest newspapers across the land, and that was not Thomas Nast's only cartoon depicting the Irish as subhuman. And this comes about at the same time that right here in the streets of Manchester, in our fair city, along Elm Street, there were signs proudly placed in the window, right on the door, Irish need not apply for jobs. So we do have a bit of an ugly history in treating the Irish, which fortunately, due to their sacrifice and contribution to the community, the Irish have been fairly successful in pushing back on and overturning. However, as recently as this past St. Patrick's Day, you would be hard-pressed not to find an Irish T-shirt saying something about getting drunk. There's a Facebook page called Manchester Information, and they had a big display up about places to drink on St. Patrick's Day. Nothing about where to see Irish music, nothing about where to get a good corned beef and cabbage breakfast, nothing about where to attend Mass. only about getting drunk. And I really think, and I'm here to push back on that, that is not okay. It is an example of lingering bigotry against the Irish that really needs to stop. Now, there is a particularly heinous example of that was just in the news on St. Patrick's Day itself. And Brian, if you could put up the second picture I wanted to put up. On St. Patrick's Day itself, the National Republican Party, the Republican National Committee, on their Twitter handle @GOP, posted this picture with the comment, "On this St. Paddy's Day, a special message from noted Irishman Robert Francis O'Rourke." Again, this is an outrageous example of ethnic bigotry, and it should not stand. I'm proud to be the president of the local division of the Ancient Order of Hibernians in America, the largest Irish American Catholic organization in the country, boasting we have over 40,000 members, including a real strong contingent right here in Manchester. And I'm happy to say that we have Caitlin Curran, president of the Ladies AOH, with us, and we'll get to her later. But I want to read a letter that the AOH sent out in response to that tweet, indicating they were shocked and appalled that on St. Patrick's Day, a day when America celebrates and honors the contributions that Irish Americans have made to our great country, the GOP would launch an attack on a prospective presidential candidate based solely on his Irish heritage. Such a scurrilous stereotype-laced attack is more in keeping with the 19th century Native American Party, also known as the Know-Nothings, than the party of Lincoln, who wept when he kissed a regimental flag of the Irish Brigade in honor of the sacrifice that so many sons of Erin had made in the American Civil War. This offensive meme is nothing more than a 21st century version of the scurrilous anti-Irish cartoons of Thomas Nast, and we saw one example of those. As America's oldest and largest Irish Catholic organization, founded in 1836 in response to anti-Irish bigotry, the Hibernians had hoped that the days when a candidate's Irish ancestry would be used as a campaign fodder were confined to the dark past, and today American political debate focuses on the issues, not the ancestry of the candidate. Sadly, this toxic tweet from the GOP proves we were optimistic and premature in our beliefs. The Ancient Order of Hibernians suggests that those responsible for this exercise in prejudice for political ends read the President's recent proclamation of Irish American Heritage Month. The Hibernians asked that the Republican National Committee denounce this tweet defaming Irish Americans and their heritage, censure those responsible, and offer a clear and ambiguous apology to the Irish American community. We won't hold our breath. But, folks, I hope all of us can kind of be a little bit more sensitive as we go about our business and complete this month of March. It's not okay to call all Irishmen drunk. Well, there's a lot more that they've contributed to society. Some argue that they saved society from the Dark Ages. So with that, that concludes my libsplain, and we can get on to some more fun things with our wonderful guests. And let's turn right to that. Can we welcome our guest, Caitlin Curran, who is president of the LAOH and also on the parade committee. Is that correct, Caitlin?
Yes, thank you, Mike. Yeah, that is correct.
And I am especially proud to welcome this year's Grand Marshals, co-Grand Marshals, John Cashin and his wife, Marilyn Cashin. John and Marilyn, welcome to the Progress Report. We're so honored to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I have often said that the position of Grand Marshal of the St. Patrick's Parade ranks in the hierarchy of Manchester somewhere just below the bishop. Just barely below the bishop. It is a true honor. Not many people have been selected to that, and it's quite an honor. And I want to express my appreciation for everything you've done to earn such a great title.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
In fact, there have been, with them as co-Grand Marshals, there have been 26 in the 24 years of the parade. So you are number 25 and 26, folks. In the elite company.
Indeed, indeed.
Thank you.
Before we get started talking about you guys, which we will do, I want to turn to Bill Beiser. Bill, can you give us a little bit of a history of the St. Patrick's Parade? This is something that actually came out of the Ancient Order of Hibernians, isn't it?
Yes, it did. What really gave impetus to it is when Bishop O'Neill came to town and he took over as bishop. He was coadjutor or whatever that was for a while. And some of the Irish community, Tom King, Dan O'Neill, and Rick Walsh with the AOH, and I happened to be there just taking pictures. We're up in his office, and Bishop O'Neill started talking about the Holyoke Parade, or as they call it, Holyoke. If you live down there, it's Holyoke. Anyway, the Holyoke Parade, and he's saying, he didn't say, you should really think about having a parade. He said to Tom King and O'Neill, he said, we'll have a parade. One of these short declarative sentences. So everybody said, yes, we will. So that's
Everyone
basically
saluted.
what it was. Everybody saluted. And while I was sitting there, he got on the phone and he called someone down in Holyoke, and he said, John, this is Leo O'Neill. And he said, I'm going to have a man named Rick Walsh call you. And I want you to arrange for him and the AOH from Manchester to be in the next Holyoke Parade. And that's what started it. We went down for, I think, 3 years in a row, just to try to figure out all this parading things. And the parade committee formed here. Our first parade was 1996, but I think the preparation for it started probably in 1994.
Oh, that's a pretty accelerated rollout for a bunch of Irishmen. I mean, think about it.
Plus our friend Bobby Stephen wasn't the least bit Irish, but his wife is. But he said we should have a St. Patrick's
And
parade.
he had his St. Patrick's Day dinner, and
He always had his dinner with that crazy green hat on and all that. So that's really the history of it, is that the AOH got sent down to be in these parades. And the parade in Holyoke is certainly not a religious occasion. It's a great frivolity. And afterwards we went to this great Irish pub and then made a couple stops on the way home with rented vans and all that. So that's what kicked it off. And 1996 was our first parade. And no surprise, the first Grand Marshal was Leo O'Neill, who at the time was suffering from cancer. And his doctor, we heard later, his doctor said, we don't want you to walk that whole distance. You got a limo there. He got out of the limo up on Salmon Street and walked the entire way, sick man. But he loved it. He absolutely loved it.
well, that reveals a couple things. One, the character of Bishop O'Neill, but two, how truly important it is to be Grand Marshal of the Manchester St. Patrick's Day Parade, isn't it? That he felt the obligation to go out there and present himself to the public, and an
he
adoring
was-
public indeed.
Yeah, they loved
He
him.
was
Yep,
quite a
true.
man.
So bring us forward. So that parade starts. I mean, you guys must have kind of picked up some steam.
1996, and then it kind of rolled forward with a couple different officers. Marty Quirk, the internationally famous Irish singer, was the parade coordinator the first 2 years,
Local troubadour.
local troubadour. And then my dear departed friend, Jim Sheehan, was the parade coordinator for 11 years. That means you have to do all this stuff, bring it all together.
That's not a ceremonial position.
No, that's one of those things where
That's just work.
that's a position where, you know, your reward is people aren't going to beat you up too badly at the end of the parade. That's your reward.
You've held that position yourself, have you
After
not?
Jim stepped down, Jim was Grand Marshal after his 11th year as parade coordinator, and then I did it for 7 years.
You didn't want to go for the record?
I didn't want to go for the record, and I can't remember if that's when Mary Ellen and I were graciously made co-Grand Marshals. But it got to the point where I was getting to a point in my life at work and with stress and everything, and I said, look, other people got to step up and do this. And the parade, no matter who's the parade coordinator, we've had a great parade every year. Sometimes we have these very famous all-star units.
Mm-hmm.
Other times-
the Mummers on the 20th anniversary parade.
We
Mummers
had the
came in.
Mummers on the 10th, one Mummers group in Philadelphia. There's about 8 of them in Philadelphia. And we had a different group on the 20th. And I think the plans are to try to have them for the 25th. I don't know. Caitlin might know better than I. But
Yeah.
We'll try.
We're gonna try our best because you gotta go all out for the 25th.
And you got to start planning with the Mummers about now for a year from now.
Well, during our next break, we'll get on the phone and see if we can ring them up and at least get them to reserve
Absolutely.
a break. And
Yep.
speaking of which, it's about time for us to take our first break. I must have gone on too long in my tirade at the beginning, but that if the AOH says it, I want to broadcast it to the world. And so, if you're wondering, folks, this is the proclamation from the city of Manchester, signed by Mayor Joyce Craig, declaring the entire month of March is Irish Heritage Month in Manchester. So, if you didn't realize it, you're walking around in Irish Heritage Month every every day right here when you're walking around downtown. But for now, we'll take a really quick break. We'll regroup, figure out what we're going to go to next, and we hope you stick around, watch the rest of the show, and don't forget to call in 640-3091, and we'll see you in just a minute. Well, welcome back, folks. I hope you don't mind. I got rid of that hat. It's pretty hot in here under the lights, and without any hair to take care of things, I had to get rid of the hat. But it looks like we have a caller, and we do appreciate our callers, so we'll let our first caller come in. Hello, caller. Hello, caller. You're live on the Progress Report. You may want to turn your TV set down. We're on a little bit of a delay.
Okay, no, I just had a question.
Sure. What can I do for you?
Who is the current parade coordinator, and who are the people that are on the committee?
That's a great question. I was just about to ask it, but you saved me the trouble. Bill, why don't you advise who the current parade coordinator is? Thanks for the call.
The current parade coordinator is a man named Jim Walsh from Frank Signs, a longtime member of the AOH. The parade committee is Caitlin Curran is an active member. Dan O'Neill remains as president. Dennis Grogan is the treasurer. Dottie Grogan is on it, and
Yolande Walsh.
Yolande Walsh, Jim's lovely wife,
Yes.
Wife.
and
Eric.
Eric
Lesniak.
who's involved with the Fisher Cats, and a couple others. And that's the working committee all year round. And as the parade approaches, it expands by about 25 souls for the people that help put on the parade on parade day. So we have a general meeting with them the Friday before the parade, pass out the yellow coats, go over the parade line of march, answer any questions, and then send them on their way for the following Sunday. But there's a core of about 6 or 7 people that meet. The first parade committee meeting after the parade will be in April. We'll have one in May and June.
You don't even take the month off?
No, May and June, and then we meet again in September.
All righty. Well, we're generating a lot of phone calls of people interested in the parade. Who doesn't like a parade? Our next caller is Bob. Bob, you're on the Progress Report.
Hello, this is Bob speaking.
How are you?
I have nothing but good things to say about the Irish.
I like you already.
I married an Irish girl. Her name was Virginia Martin, and her parents were the salt of the earth. And they loved me, and I loved them back. And I am not of Irish descent. I am from French persuasion. And the marriage didn't last, but the people the family that I married into, the Irish people, they always treated me with dignity and respect. And I'll always remember them for that. And I just thought I'd call in and let you know.
Well, Bob, we really appreciate the call. And living in the city of Manchester, there actually are probably a lot of French and Irish families. I know I come from one myself. So it's a great thing when cultures can blend like that. That's what's the strength of America.
And remember that the Irish built St. Augustine Church.
Indeed.
Yeah. The Irishmen who Father MacDonald had brought into St. Anne's Church, the French wanted a church, so he sent the Irish guys down and built their church for them.
Well, the Irish built a lot in Manchester, not least among those things being the canal and most of the mill yard buildings. So that they did bring that skill despite the tough knocks. John Clayton tells a wonderful story or the way he tells the story of the Irish arriving in Manchester, and the people who were there already going down to welcome them with sticks and rocks, but the Irish having the heritage of the game of hurling were better with sticks and rocks, and so we're able to stay. So that's a nice way that John Clayton puts it.
That's a
kind
good
of
story.
glossing over some things. So let's now turn from the parade in general to the stars of the show. John and Marilyn Cashin. We're going to go first. We're going to go with Marilyn. Ladies first. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Marilyn. Are you a native of? What brought you to Manchester? How'd you get here? And we can talk about how you met this guy a little later on.
I come from Lynn, Mass., and my grandparents were married here in Manchester by Bishop Brady at St. Anne's Church. And they moved when my grandfather worked for the railroad, and he was transferred to Boston, and they moved to Lynn. My mother and her youngest brother were born in Lynn, and my mother always had an aunt and uncle that lived here in Manchester, so we used to come visit all the time. And we stayed very close. We used to come at least twice a month to visit up by car and up the old road, 114.
Oh
through,
my! not even Route 3.
Through Methuen and all the back streets. And then I met my Waterloo through. Friends of my mother and father's used to come back from Manchester, used to come back and forth to stay with us. And we called them cousins because they were so close. And Mary, the daughter, introduced us one night on a blind date. And I came up by train, and she couldn't meet me at the train because she had to work. So my friend was standing there, and he says to me, "Are you Marilyn?" I said, "Yeah." "You John?" "Yeah." That was it.
Well, what a romantic story! You're trying to downplay it. I can feel your effort to damp that down. But that's a really romantic story.
That's great.
That's a glorious first meeting story.
Yeah.
Now let's hear John's side of it. John, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where's your roots?
Oh, in Manchester. I was born and brought up right here. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't go very far very often. I was in the service a while, of course, but
What branch?
Oh, the Army. But then I went to work for the government, the IRS. So I worked at that for 25 or 30 years, something like that.
Where did you work out of? Were they in Andover back then, or
No, right around here. Our office, we had an office in Nashua for a while,
I didn't know.
and so it was nice and easy. Well, I didn't get mixed up with people such as yourself, of course. I mean,
I don't know how to take that.
well, we didn't expect people like you to be involved with these things, but there were a lot of cooperations, and it was very interesting. You'll learn an awful lot about an awful lot of people, I'll tell you.
So
It's
is
very
your
interesting.
recollection of the train arrival in Manchester the same as Marilyn's?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was instructed to go down and make sure that I picked her up. Yeah.
And that would have been at the old Manchester train station that
Yes.
we so tragically lost.
Yeah.
And we went to a dance, believe it or not, at Sweeney Post.
I love it.
At the old Sweeney.
That's classic Manchester, is it
Well,
not? That's a classic Manchester story. We love
Remember
it.
that old TV program called Connections?
Yeah.
It's certainly true here.
Well, at least he made the connection, which is a wonderful thing. How long have you two been married?
62 years.
Oh my goodness.
We've had a wonderful life. I have to
That's
say. Wonderful.
and I hear that when folks come to the parade, there's actually going to be two parades. There's going to be the parade of the Cashin family, followed by the St. Patrick's parade. How many family members did you say were going to be marching with you?
I think 30.
Oh my goodness, that's a reward in itself, isn't
Well,
it?
we have 5 children, and 14 grandchildren and 6 great-grandchildren.
Holy smokes, that's
Most of them are married.
that's fantastic. Do your kids and grandkids live in the area, or do you?
The furthest one lives in Antrim.
Oh my! So they're over to visit.
Oh, yes.
Well, I don't envy you that. That sounds like a revolving door at your house,
Oh, we have
especially
a
on
lot of
weekends.
fun.
Your Christmases and Thanksgivings must be
Christmas,
extraordinary. Not to mention, did you cook for the family on St. Patrick's Day, or did you guys go somewhere else?
No, I cooked just for a couple of friends and a couple of the kids, 2 sets. The others all do their own for St. Patrick's. So
Well, at least you have that to look forward to.
We had fun. We had a good day.
Caitlin, I want to turn to you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about the LAOH. I know that you're newly installed. You're in your first year or your second year as president of the LAOH?
We're coming up to the second year. We give out scholarships at the end of the year. We're getting ready to pick our next scholarship winner, and we'll take them out to dinner at a local Irish eatery. We also do the gift wrap and shopping with the AOH for the holiday Christmas presents.
That's one of our biggest programs, and we couldn't do it without the LAOH.
I've done it for how many years, Bill?
Oh, yeah. all of them.
Just a word of advice. When the ladies always do the wrapping and the men come along, thick-fingered men come along and try to pick up the gifts, you don't want to walk in that room when the ladies are doing the wrapping until it's all done, everything's bagged up, the names are on there. Then they say, okay, you guys come in and pick them up and put them over there. And don't open them and don't change anything. I walked in there once to try to make a suggestion. Not a good idea.
Well, it takes a real team. What we're referring to is the AOH and LAOH Christmas Adopt a Family program, which has been going on for many, many years here in Manchester. A lot of people don't know about it. But in this program, the AOH raises money over the course of the year, and we accumulate as much as we can, and then we seek out underprivileged kids that aren't getting benefits from other organizations, kids that have fallen through the cracks, families that have fallen through the cracks. And this year we were able to bring Christmas to 20 kids, a total of 12 families. Each kid gets about $200 or so in Christmas presents. And the unique thing we do is we communicate with the families and we find out what they want, and we buy what's on the kids' Christmas list. So, and we also, something new that we started just a few years ago is in coordination with New Horizons, we bring a Christmas dinner to the family as well. So it's a program that we're very proud of. The AOH, basically we take the front end and the back end. We raise the money at the beginning. We do contribute to buying the gifts. The ladies help with that as well. And then we distribute the gifts. But in the meantime, taking the raw materials and turning them into a Christmas, that's what the ladies do. They wrap them up beautifully. They organize them so that everybody gets what they want.
And we shop.
And they do the shopping too as well. We don't want to forget that. And that's no small thing, by the way. That's no small thing, trying to buy Christmas presents for 20 people. But it's something that we're very proud of in the AOH and the LAOH, and one of the things that we really work well together on, and you guys have been involved in that, and it's really important to the city. It makes a big difference. Are you looking forward to reigning? I mean, you get to reign for an entire year as Grand Marshal. You're going to wear that sash, to work, or
I'll wear my sweater.
Our last year Grand Marshal was Sheila O'Neill Smith.
Yeah.
And there is a kind of a dramatic ceremony that goes on every year. It used to be called the passing of the sash because there was one Grand Marshal sash.
Yeah.
But the Bisers, when they went to the co-Grand Marshals, they kind of messed that up. They had to get a new sash. So they changed the protocol, which I think is nice. They buy a new sash every year.
Yeah,
they went out and they bought sashes for all the past Grand Marshals as well. Yeah. So you get to keep it. But when we were at the Mass where they blessed the sash, and Sheila presented you with your sashes, she whispered in my ear, "Does that mean I have to take it off?" I was pleased to be able to tell her not until after the Irish dinner after Mass. So she was able to wear it for those last few minutes. But does
Father Jerome said at Mass, he said, you can keep it now.
He did mention that. I think
Guy's medal.
yes, he has a very special past Grand Marshal medal that I think might be unique. I haven't seen other Grand Marshals.
He made it up
wearing
for
that.
himself, actually.
Wonderful. I think that's very Irish. That's a wonderful thing.
Could I add something?
Sure, by all means.
These two very deserving, very humble people might not want to talk about themselves, but
I've been trying to bring it out of them, and they're very tight-lipped.
Last
I
year-
don't know what secrets they're trying to keep.
last year
though.
we had a great laugh with Sheila talking about the founding of the ladies AOH. Now, my wife was the founding president. Marilyn was one of the founding officers. Sheila was involved. And the ladies AOH from Massachusetts came up to install them. And as opposed to the men's installations, which are not very structured. The ladies are
We try.
extraordinarily structured. So what happened is they didn't have enough women at swinging posts in the hall. So Marilyn went out into the lounge and said, "Look, you're Irish, you're Irish. Come on in and listen to what the ladies had to say." And these ladies were zealots. So her friends from the lounge just said, "That's not for me." They went back out. So they couldn't have the installation.
Oh, no.
They come back the next month. They came back the next month, and my wife had gotten Rick Walsh's wife, who's as French as could be, and her daughter and other people involved in it. And the day before these zealots from Massachusetts were coming up, they could not find the statue of St. Bridget.
I've heard that story.
Everybody was going crazy. 3 households were being torn apart to find St. Bridget. Half hour before they showed up, they had to go to the library in Bedford. Someone found St. Bridget, and they went in, they actually got themselves invested. It was panic time.
Well, nothing the Irish do is easy, and it's good. There's a great origin story for the Shanahan division of the AOH. Very similar. Several brothers, including Danny O'Neill, Sean Markey, and several others, just wanted to join the AOH, so they went down to Lawrence. There was a division down there. They figured we'll join the AOH, and they were met with, "No, we're not going to install you in our organization." And they sent them home to start their own, and that was 1985. And since then, we've had a very strong and vibrant and active AOH division here in Manchester as well, which I'm proud to be a part of. So we're at the moment where we can take our second break, do a little bit of regrouping. We're almost done the show, folks. I told you it goes by fast. I want to thank the folks that have called in, but if you'd like to call in, if you'd like to, if the Cashins are your grandparents, call up and say hi. Or if you have any questions about when the parade's going to be or where the best places to watch the parade are going to be, feel free to call in. And Caitlin, I want to talk a little bit with you at the next segment about where we might want to go and not want to go to patronize establishments on Elm Street. But we'll get to that in the next segment. In the meantime, we will be right back, folks. And we are back for the third and final segment of the Progress Report for the 20th of March, just getting past St. Patrick's Day. Oh, and I forgot to mention, about an hour and a half ago, it became springtime, people. So not only are you in Irish Heritage Month, we're also in springtime now, even as we speak and as we breathe the new springtime air. And boy, can we use it.
No
I
more
gotta
snow.
tell you. The scientific fact is that the sun crossed the equator, and we're going to have longer days beginning here on. We're at the spring equinox at about 5:56 this afternoon, I think it was. So welcome to spring, folks. Let me welcome you. It's mine. I can welcome you to it.
Why don't you throw in the parade, we'll do it at the end, but the parade is always the last Sunday of March, always, except that's when Easter Sunday. And it's held a couple times, but so it's the last Sunday of March. It's the 31st of March, steps off at Salmon and Elm at noon.
And we'll say that several times before the end of the show. But
And one hopes the snowbanks and the ice
Are gone.
spots and everything will be gone by then, but
I am going to tell you they will be, okay? There's no doubt about it, folks. Make your plans, mark your calendar, get outside, watch the parade. It actually, there is a very large turnout. The city does support the parade very well. Folks are lined up several deep for the entire length of the parade. It's a great turnout. It's a great chance to get outside in the springtime. You know, we've been cooped up for so long. Pleased to say we have another caller. We've got David on line one. David, thanks for calling. You're on the Progress Report. What can we do for you?
Hi, Michael. Hi, Bill. Hi, Caitlin. Hi, Grand Marshal. Quick question. I don't know if you mentioned it. When is the Manchester St. Patrick's Parade this year, and what time and where?
Well, we just did, but we'll do it again, David. It's Sunday, the 31st of March, right down Elm Street. You can take a spot anywhere from north of Bridge all the way down to Veterans Park on either side of the street, and it starts at noontime, and it'll go for, a couple hours, huh? An hour and a half, 2 hours?
it's generally over by about 1:45.
Yeah.
Anything else,
Thanks so
David?
much.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks for calling. Just wanted to make sure we got that in, and we almost didn't. We went 2 segments without mentioning when the parade was. What a host I am. Bob, where are you when we need you? Yeah, folks, again, we're going to remind you, a week from next Sunday, noontime, Elm Street. Just be down there. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
A lot of businesses open up. The people are out there. A lot of businesses open up. They want to get customers coming in from a parade. Some businesses sponsor the parade. Some businesses don't sponsor the parade. And it's kind of hard to tell.
It's also, a few years ago, the Millennium Running started having a road race before the parade. So between the parade and the road race, the Shamrock Shuffle, there are thousands of people are in downtown Manchester from about 7:30 Sunday morning till 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon. Now, if you can imagine that 25 years ago for downtown Manchester, it's just, it's almost like the Mardi Gras with people wandering around there hour after hour after hour, supporting the local businesses and having a grand time.
And the reason I bring that up is because the local businesses should support the parade. And if you are a local business owner in Manchester and you have not made a contribution to the parade committee, you ought to think again, because this is a tremendous boon to the city. It brings a lot of business downtown. It generates a lot of revenue for these businesses, these hospitality businesses downtown. They're tailor-made for a day like this, and we really hope there's still time. You can get in touch with the parade committee by going to stpatricksparade.com.
It's SAINT, St. Pat's NH.com.
StPatsNH.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
SAINT, St. Pat's
As well as our
NH.com.
Facebook page.
Probably easier to find the St. Patrick's Day Parade on Facebook. You can search for it.
Make
But,
sure you do Manchester, New Hampshire, because we've been getting a lot of requests from overseas, and they don't seem to do the filters right.
Okay.
When I was parade coordinator, I got an email one day from a lady regarding the Manchester St. Patrick's Parade, and she just a strange note that said, "Are the vendors going to be set up near the stables right next to the church in the town square?" I thought about, what is she talking about? I looked at the address. I sent her a note back and I said, "This is Manchester, New Hampshire. I'm sure the Manchester England Parade is very nice, but wrong continent." But we got some of those this year from Manchester, right? About Manchester. Yeah.
Yes, we did again. Yep.
But could I continue
Please
talking
do.
about these humble people?
Yes, let's get back to the...
My friend John, I met John by way of Sweeney Post many, many, many years ago. And John was for decades, part of the dynamic duo of George Smith, the extrovert tyrant, who was the athletic director at Sweeney Post, and John Cashin, who was the finance officer there. He did all the bookkeeping for the baseball program. He's a past commander at Sweeney Post. And John really never said anywhere near as much or as loud as what George said.
That would be hard to do.
That would be hard to do. But there are a couple times in my dealings with John, I heard him talking to people, and the emotions were flying, and people were going all over the place. And John very firmly said, "We're not going to do that." The discussion moved on to another topic because John was the financial guy, and he said, "We're just not going to do that." He's a remarkable guy. He's been involved in the community in many, many quiet ways for decades. He was involved with New Horizons way back when Sister was trying to get a building,
and he got it.
and John did the financial projections that allowed New Horizons to buy the building that they're in now. Because he, being an accountant, he did the cash flows and all that, and
Holy
able
cow.
to get the loan.
I was not aware of that, John. That's a really important I mean, look what that has brought to us, the benefit
I know.
to the city that
And you
that
hear
has brought
so
to
much,
us.
and you never hear.
You never hear John say that.
You never hear him.
And the other thing you asked John, were you in the military? Oh, I was in the Army. John's got still got mortar shell in him from Korea, Chinese metal, and John was at Pork Chop Hill,
Holy cow.
one of the famous or infamous battles of the Korean War. And John was there, and
To
he
be
was
able to
wounded
come home
and
from that is
got
extraordinary.
carried away. And
Holy,
to these
you,
days,
you were far too modest. And again, I should be interviewing Bill about you guys because he's giving me more information. I was trying to gently pull it out of you, but I guess my skills are a little rusty.
I think many of them you can pull all you want, and they just won't say. Maryland's
Yeah.
been involved with the Red Cross forever, and all sorts of things around town. But
Our
but
place.
our place, the people who nominated these two knew all about their background, and they documented it all, and they certainly are outstanding selections. Outstanding.
This is the kind of individual that makes Manchester what Manchester is. I've said to anyone who will listen that people don't realize if it weren't for folks, unnamed, anonymous folks, volunteering, doing all of these little jobs throughout the city, this city would fall flat on its face. This city has been a city of volunteers since the mills closed. The city came together and said, we're just gonna do it ourselves then, and the work that people like you do behind the scenes without fanfare, with no financial recompense, makes the city what it is, and folks have to understand
We used
that.
to have to come down every week from Claremont because he did the books at St. Raphael's. He did the finances at St. Raphael. We came down every weekend. So
You know, I'd like to say thank you, guys. Thank you very, very much. This is, you know, I don't have, you know, I don't talk very much. I never have much to say, but this is something different, something very, very special, and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much.
Well, I think you want to thank the past Grand Marshals, who was the committee that appointed you guys.
and thank you for me too.
Folks may not realize, but that's how it's done. There's nominations, and then the committee of the past 5 Grand Marshals reviews the nominations. And I can't imagine that it was any contest this year because the contributions. The Grand Marshal's position, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's designed to recognize the unrecognized heroes in the city of Manchester. Am I putting it right?
Yes.
You know, a lot of people get high acclaim. They're in the newspaper. You know, but it's as I was saying just before, it's the folks that are in the trenches, putting their shoulder to the wheel every day, taking care of those less fortunate, doing the books for a church that you know needs that help. And couldn't afford to hire somebody to do it. You know, that's the kind of thing that I've certainly seen throughout my life, and that's kept the city of Manchester afloat. And that's the kind of thing I think that the Grand Marshal position is designed kind of to spotlight, which is why I said at the beginning that really, as far as esteem goes, it's very high. I think it's above the mayor. I really do think it's above the mayor of the city. You have to do more to become a Grand Marshal than you do to become the mayor of Manchester. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna reach the high point on the 31st, and we expect with the cash-ins, all the Irish background, as our departed president of the parade committee, Tom King, always said, go to a French church and say 4 Hail Marys the day before the parade, and that way there won't be any rain.
That is the Bill. That's the secret. You're not supposed to tell people that. 4 Hail Marys in a French church clears the weather all the time. It works.
It always worked for Tom. I don't know about the rest of us.
Let me talk a little bit about something else about this parade that the parade committee should be very proud of, and that a lot of people don't realize. You come downtown, all the streets are prepared for the parade. They've actually run through with the canines to make sure that people are safe. There are police everywhere. You don't even see them because they're so professional. Firefighters are available, EMS, everything is ready. All of that costs money, but it doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. It's a free show for the city because folks like Bill and Caitlin and the other volunteers that we mentioned as part of the parade committee go out and raise money. Caitlin, you want to talk to that?
Yeah. Not only that, with the Manchester Public Schools, with the bands that come out to play, we give back to those schools. As what, like I said, we pay for the police details, we keep the streets clean, we give back to the schools, New Horizons we give back to, and we also, the Shriners are coming this year with their little cars. Well, they require a donation, which of course we're making. We're a 503c nonprofit, so all donations made to us are tax deductible. Yeah, tax deductible. And then we don't keep the money because we are a nonprofit. We then go say, oh, Manchester Public Schools, yes, here's some money. Here's Bedford, Londonderry. They all get
So
donations from us.
The bands get a stipend for marching in our parade.
Yes.
And they're not alone. The other divisions, some of the pipe and drum organizations, some of the military reenactors, the fife and drums, they all have a fee, and that doesn't stay static. That goes up year upon year.
Yes.
That's right.
So you guys are constantly trying to raise money through raffles. I know the AOH is happy to make a donation as much as we can.
Same with the ladies. We kick in some cash.
The ladies do too, and then that's hard-earned cash for organizations like ours. But we all chip in to try to put on a great show. Do either of you know what the bill's going to be for the parade this year?
The budget, I haven't been involved with too many budget discussions, but the budget just for entertainment units, because almost every entertainment unit comes down the street, virtually all of them charge from a couple $1,000 to $500 or $600 for step dancers, bagpipers, anything like that. Jim Walsh is the parade coordinator, and I think the last discussion on his entertainment budget was $25,000 or $26,000, something like that.
Yes, around that ballpark, and then
That's just for the entertainment.
And that doesn't include all the safety and security and
Correct.
everything else.
the police detail that we pick up. It covers the race prior, and then of course the parade.
So I've heard numbers in the area of about $50,000. Is that an accurate estimate of the total cost?
Every year it's over 40 in the aggregate, and the years where we've kind of gone up and cleared the boards with the mummers, it was over $50,000. And if you have a group like the mummers, you have to have go out and get some very large donors, and some of them choose to remain anonymous, but for an operating number this year, probably in the aggregate something over 40. But I don't attend every meeting, so I don't get involved in too
you've
many.
earned the rest, Bill. I mean, 7 years as
a long
parade
time.
coordinator, I'd put my feet up on the desk.
Well, you're talking downtown Manchester. Just to remind you about Manchester and the city, is that early in March every year, the flags go up on Elm Street. So if you're on Elm Street, you'll see the flags up.
American flags on one side, Irish flags on the other.
The city has the lift truck and puts them up there. The city owns the American flags, right? The parade committee owns the Irish flags. So that and we have to pay for the crew, the city crew, they bill us, and that's fine. And so, the flags get tangled up in trees and all that. So any of the flags that are replaced on the Irish flags, we go over to Jutras and buy them, and then the city does its own. It's a cooperative effort. It really beautifies the city as far as that season. And Intel Manchester, I think, really appreciates it. All of a sudden, we've added this extra little eye candy for Elm Street.
And such a beautiful flag it is, isn't it?
Absolutely, no question.
It looks familiar, of these things I got in front of me. It kind of looks like
I
it.
would also point out that in addition to declaring the month Irish Heritage Month, the Irish tricolor is being flown at City Hall at the Annex. Not atop the tower like it usually. I guess there's some structural issues with the flagpoles on City Hall. Got to fix those because we got to get that Irish tricolor up on top of City Hall. But it is flying in the courtyard of the City Hall Annex, and it will fly there for the entire month. The AOH also donated a huge Irish flag, and I'm working really hard to get that thing displayed somewhere on Parade Day. I don't know if we'll get it up on the flagpole in Veterans Park, or maybe we can hang it from a fire truck or something, but I'm working hard to try to, we can't keep that folded up in a bag. We got to get that thing out.
I'm sure you'll find someplace.
Is that the one that was at the aldermanic meeting
Yes,
a couple years
the one
ago?
we presented a couple of years ago to the city.
We all went in and opened up this flag, and it was so large that the mayor was standing there, and the podium and everything. The flag was about 6 feet high. We opened it up, and you couldn't see half the aldermen. This year, they didn't invite the flag back.
No, we kept it a little bit more low key this year. We learned from your errors.
You
you know.
also have the shamrock in the middle of Elm Street.
Yes.
They helped
Yep.
painted.
Yep.
Yep.
Those were
She
all
helped
painted
paint it.
last weekend.
It was
did you?
last
Yep.
weekend. Yep.
Yeah.
And there's two. There's one right at the reviewing stand at Veterans Park, and then there's one right in front of City Hall.
Right in front of City
Yes.
Hall. Yep.
Well, it's been a real pleasurable hour. I really wish you would have been more
well,
braggadocious and told us more of the great things that you've done, but we all get a sense of all you've done for the city, and on behalf of everyone, thank you very much for everything that you've
Thank
done
you for
us.
having us.
This
This
is
city
very
would not be
nice.
the city without folks like you. Caitlin, thanks for everything you're doing for the LAOH and for the parade committee. Bill, you're a legend. Thanks for coming in and helping me do the show. Bob,
Thanks.
I hope you're voting right up there in Concord, and I hope you get out sometime in time for dinner. We'll be back next week on the Progress Report. It'll be the weekend right before the parade. We'll remind you about the Wednesday right before the parade. We'll remind you about it. Thanks to our callers. Thank you, folks, for watching.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, we're more than happy to have you here. You're among the better
enjoyable.
guests that we have.
It's a pleasure.
So we will see you next week on the Progress Report, folks. Thanks for watching.